Hi, I'm Judith. I'm a Canadian and I'm over 80 years old. And in my life, I've learned some things, and I'd like to share them with you because I hope that that will help you. My purpose is to help you create a happy, successful, and fulfilling life. Um, uh, or to look at, if you're already, like I am, old, um, maybe it's not about creating a happy, successful, and fulfilling life, but maybe it's about looking back at your life and as I'm looking back at mine and seeing in what ways it worked and in what ways it didn't. And gosh, if we get a shot at reincarnation, maybe we'll come back and do it better. I don't know about that. Um, okay, so today I'm going to continue on with decision making. This is number 5. There are going to be 5 items at least in the playlists. Who knows, in the future I may come back. I think this is the last one. I think I'm just about done with talking about decision making. If you haven't caught the earlier ones, you can go back. I number all the episodes. I don't remember what episode this will be. I think it's going to be number 25 or 26, around there. But you can certainly, if you look on my channel, Jam Today, at Judith's Point of View, you can scroll back down and see all the episodes right from number 1. So decisions, and there is a playlist that I will tag on this one so that you'll find the others. So today I'm going to talk about, I've talked a lot about making good decisions and various ideas about decisions and examples of decisions that I've made and others have made. Today I'm going to talk about 2 topics. One is about when you make bad decisions, and the other is about indecisiveness, about when you just are stuck and you can't seem to make a decision at all. I touched on that in one previous video. Okay, so bad decisions. Here's the thing about bad decisions. We're all going to make them. There is nobody who has ever lived who has never made a bad decision. I mean, unless you are so timid that you never make any decisions at all, which is a form of decision making, and bad decision making at that, I would say. We're all going to make bad decisions. So never fear. You're going to make some. If you're young, I'm mostly talking to young or middle-aged people in this, like youngish, teens, 20s, 30s kind of people, especially 20s, 30s people, I think. I don't know if that's the audience that I'm finding. If you're in your 40s or 50s, then you can chime in about what you found that would work, that worked for you with decisions, that was good, that helped, or that hurt, or where my analysis is wrong, or where my analysis is spot on. I think that would be useful to other people seeing the channel. I don't have any comments yet, so you can be the first. Okay, so I'm going to talk about bad decisions. You're going to make bad decisions, for sure. You're going to make bad decisions. Some of them are, I would say try not to make a bad decision in the sense of, if something is obviously going to cause you harm, if something is obviously just a little dicey, if it's going to break the law, if it's going to skirt the law, or rules and regulations, if it's going to, if discovered, cause you great shame and grief because it will be very embarrassing, if it could hurt you physically, like taking drugs or whatever, taking, I don't know, ecstasy at a party, and then it turns out it's got fentanyl in it and you die, and there have been lots of cases of people doing that. Like, try not to make those decisions. Just don't do those risky things. Don't jump off a bridge and risk breaking your neck in shallow water, right? Don't do it. And if you do, be prepared to live with the consequences, I guess. And I don't say that in an unkind way, but we've likely all taken some risks that, because I'm a cautious risk taker. I believe in taking risks, like deciding to give life at home and income and go live in the south of France, like buying a 49-foot boat down in the U.S. and cruising on it for 6 months a year with my partner when I didn't know anything about boats. He did, though. I'll talk about that some other time. Those are cautious risks. That they're kind of adventures. You can leap off and take an adventure. But if it's something that is really, really dangerous, that could be really, really fatal or very, very, get you hooked on drugs or something, like, please, just don't do it. Just choose the better way. Um, we also make bad decisions, though, inadvertently. You make you make decisions that are bad, that turn out to be bad decisions, sometimes because you don't know better. That would be, I talked in a recent video about my most shameful secret, and it was about um, how my teaching career ended. But I chose to leave a structured, really academic kind of high school and go teach in in a brand new high school with very different, with very, like, it was open concept, well, it wasn't ungraded, but it was an open concept school. It was not in the, it was run in a totally different way. But you know what? I didn't know. I mean, I was 25 and I didn't know myself well enough to know I wouldn't thrive in that kind of environment. And I didn't really know that that's the kind of school I was getting into either. And so that didn't turn out well for me. But I can't blame myself for that decision. My big thing at that point was I wanted to get out of Northern Ontario and get down to Southern Ontario, or Southwestern Ontario, somewhere else, because I didn't want to meet someone up in Northern Ontario and end up marrying them and living up there all the time, because I didn't like it up there. So, it got me out of there. It just didn't turn out very well in other ways. But if you go back and listen to that video, things turned out okay. So there are some bad decisions or decisions that turn out to be bad that we make kind of unknowingly. We just couldn't foresee it. There are some we make for other reasons. I want to tell a story on my husband here. He died 20 years ago, so he's not going to be around to know. Dan, I'm sorry if this embarrasses you from up and. So I have to do a little edit here because I got a date wrong. So this was about 1992, 93. And he had gone out on his own, and he was working as in the advertising business as an in between the advertising agency and artists, and he was having his own business from a graphic arts company that dealt with advertisers. He wasn't working for them anymore. He was freelancing, and he was being the interface between advertising agencies and art studios, because in those days things weren't done with CAD or they had real artists doing everything and real photographers, and everybody, it wasn't just all online and being done in with software. And he was and so he had a client, and he was working with her, and she was getting him to do lots of stuff for her, and he was actually hiring the illustrators and artists to do the work. So they weren't dealing with big ad agencies. He was just hiring independent contractors to do the work for her. And then he was paying the contract, so he would bill her and pay the contractors. And he had done work for her for, I don't know, a month or 2 months, and the billing was monthly. And he hadn't been paid. Now, I'd been in business at that point since 1988, and I said to him, if she's not paying you, you better stop working for her. You just stop doing the work, because that's a really bad sign. Like, she hasn't paid you, and it's over, I don't know, a month or 2 months or something. She hasn't paid you on a timely basis, and you owe this money to other people, so you better stop doing the work, and tell her that you can't proceed until the work is done. And he didn't follow my advice. He felt that it would be insulting to her. He didn't want to risk insulting her. He didn't want to offend her. He wanted the work. He hoped that it would turn out okay. All of those things. It wasn't a good business decision. It was a really bad decision on his part, because the laborer is worthy of the hire. If you've got to be a bit hard-headed about that. I had my own business. If I didn't get paid on a timely basis, I was there asking the people to pay me. I didn't have any embarrassment about that. I had done the work, that they owed me the money. It was time to be paid. And he didn't ever confront her about that. And so he went on doing more work for her. And this was 1993, because we were leaving in August to go to live in the south of France. So he must have been doing this work in the winter and spring, the spring of 1993, just before, or early summer before we left. And she went bankrupt and left him. So if I recall the figures correctly, she owed him $10,000 Canadian dollars for the work that they had done. And of that, he had paid over 8,000, I think 8,500 or something, to, he hadn't paid it, but he owed that to subcontractors, people that he had hired to do the work. Now, there are some people who would, I work for some people that I know if I subcontracted and if they didn't get paid, they just weren't going to pay me. But I didn't believe it. He didn't believe that that was right. He had hired those people in good faith, and they deserved to be paid for the work, whether or not his client did not pay. And so we ate that money. He paid out of our savings just before we went to live in France, and with my full consent, he paid that 8,500 to those subcontractors, and didn't have the income that he had thought he was going to get from that contract. You know, he didn't have the 1,500 or 1,000 or 1,500, whatever it was. That hurt. I mean, we weren't mega rich. We had that money, but we weren't mega rich, and that really ate into the money that we had going over to live in the south of France, you know, and not to have an income for a year or 15 months. Turned out to be 2 years. So that was a bad decision, and it wasn't made for good reasons. But it was only money, and I don't say that cavalierly, but the fact is we survived. We still managed to go to France. It didn't stop that. It did give him, I think it really undermined his confidence, because when we came back, he didn't go back into that business. I don't think he was going to anyway, but I think it undermined his confidence in his own abilities to be an entrepreneur, to run a business himself. So, you know, we all make bad decisions at sometimes in our life. That was just one that I happened to think of. I've certainly made many bad decisions in my life, not from lack of knowing, but I made bad decisions about men because I wanted to be loved. I call it my looking for love in all the wrong places years. I don't know if I'll ever talk about that in this channel. I had been badly jilted by someone I was very serious about, and I spent the next 4 years kind of on a rather wild fling, which one could do in those days without too much danger, but not the greatest thing. Didn't accord with my values, didn't make me feel good, but I didn't kind of know how else to react. You know, I learned from that. So bad decisions. Mostly what we have to do then is do the best we can when we see the consequences of that decision, to see how it sits with us, to see how it feels, to try to get over it, to try to deal with any shame or guilt or embarrassment or financial consequences or legal consequences or whatever. Except for the most dire circumstances, is usually a way out from bad decisions. You can usually recover from them. I mentioned in another video, I know someone who went to jail and now is learned to be a baker and is now doing a really good job at baking and having a very successful life. So not a good decision, the things that put him in jail, but or the thing that put him in jail, but turned out okay in the end. You know, it got a silver lining and managed to do okay. So mostly we can recover. There are huge stories of recovery from all kinds of things, from drug addiction, from alcoholism, from from jail, from legal consequences, from all kinds of issues. There is a way out. The thing I would caution you about is, well, you try not to make a bad decision, but if you have done that, or even if it wasn't a bad decision, it was just a decision between A and B and you chose A, don't spend your life thinking you should have chosen B instead. Like, there's no future in that. There's no hope in that. That doesn't get you anywhere. Get the lessons from whatever you learned and move on. And I think I talked in another video about someone I knew who chose not to go to journalism school when she was young, and 15 or 20 years later was still bemoaning that like almost every day, as if her life had been ruined because of that bad decision. I also knew someone, a different person, who just raked herself over the coals no end when her parents had died, as each parent died, for she's like gave herself a horrible amount of guilt. She didn't do enough. She didn't do the right thing. She didn't notify this person in time. She didn't do that in time. She should have done this instead. She should have done that. Maybe if she'd done this, they wouldn't have died. I mean, it went on endlessly. And that, uh, if you're in that kind of a spin about your decisions, even when they weren't bad decisions, you did the best thing you could at the time. You knew the best you could, at the time. You can't go on thinking that it would have turned out differently because you did some other small thing differently. You don't know. You just don't know how it would have turned out if it had gone the other way. I learned after my husband died of a sudden heart attack that I would have been well advised. Might have helped if I'd known CPR, but in fact, the odds of being able to revive someone with CPR, to save them with CPR rather than a defibrillator, are very small. I learned, like 8%. It might have helped if I had known to get him to take a couple of aspirin, and I didn't know that. And I can't beat myself over. For years, he's been dead for 20 years, but couldn't beat myself then. I can't beat myself now for what I didn't know. It's fruitless. It doesn't help. You can only learn and say, well, if that happens again, this is what I'm going to do instead. So bad decisions. I want to talk next about what do you do when you just can't make a decision. So in almost all cases, sometimes we make decisions more slowly. Sometimes we make decisions faster. Sorry, I just skipped ahead in my thoughts here. In almost all cases, to go back to where I started, I think that it is better to make a decision than to not make a decision. Now, it's one thing to not make a decision for a period of time because you need more time. You may need more time to gather more data or to get more in touch with your feelings about it, to get more clarity about it. You might need more time because you have fear that, and you have to figure out whether that fear is real or whether is that instinct telling you not to do something, or is that fear something that you need to feel the fear and do it anyway. So sometimes you need a little more time. But to live your life not making decisions is sort of to be a little piece of wood floating on the river of life and just letting the current take you wherever it takes you. And I don't think that usually ends up well. I don't think it takes you to good places. I think it may often result in you hitting some kind of a really bad situation in which you drown, or that you get stuck in a little shallow pool somewhere, and your life becomes just a meaningless treadmill of the mundane, because you can't make a decision about things. And I think that is really, really sad. So I'm just going to say that, so if you've got to gather more data, well, then go to it. Get gathering more data. If you just lack clarity, you don't know what to do next. I think I mentioned at one point, I may not have mentioned this. Or I may. I don't remember. I think I mentioned, anyway. So when my husband and I came back from France the last time in 2005, we were looking for a place to live. Were we going to retire to France or not? We decided no, but we would maybe find a place we could be there in the winters. And then we had to find a place where we could move from Toronto, where we were going to move, because we needed to sell our house to get the value to have retirement. We didn't have enough money to retire on without it. And the house in Toronto was worth a lot of money, and we could live cheaply somewhere else outside the city. And he wanted to go uh, west to Niagara, and I wanted to go to east toward Cobourg, Belleville, that area, and and we couldn't agree, and so we had decided to, I just said, well, we'll pray about it. We'll see what God wants us to do. Which way it should go, because sometimes praying about a thing, whether it's your decision or a joint decision, praying about it. And as it happened, he died before that. He died 6 weeks later, after we came back from France. So, and maybe only 2 or 3 weeks or a month before after we had that conversation. And I said, we'll pray about it more. So that ended up being a decision that never had to be made. But if you just don't know what to do, yes, you can pray about it. And if you're not a praying person in the sense of a traditional religious God, some spiritual being, ask the universe to show you which one is better. Ask your subconscious to guide you in the right direction. We all have a spark of something inside us. Ask your subconscious. Apparently your subconscious is really powerful. Can keep you breathing, can keep you doing a lot of things, can give you dreams. It can do a lot of things for you. That's part of the visualization process, is getting that subconscious to help you. So you can visualize. You can see, if you visualize option A versus option B versus option C, however many options you have for your decision, you can see which one feels better when you visualize, which one excites you more, which one gives you more sense of, listen to your body. Like, I have talked about how a decision feels like a solid thunk in the bottom of my stomach when I get it right, but it might mean that you feel lighter in your body, that you feel butterflies in your stomach. I don't know what the symptoms are for your body, but listen to your body. And then, so you can pray, you can visualize, you can affirm, you can listen to your body, talk to someone else, find someone who has some experience with the decision that you're facing, someone who might be objective about it, not someone who has a vested interest in what you choose. But you can find someone else to talk to about it. And with online resources and these days, there's a lot of information. Just evaluate who you're, who's talking to and what interest they may have or what bias they may have. Don't go to your most cautious, most skeptical friend about some adventure you might want to have, because they're going to say, oh my gosh, no, don't ever do that, So you can talk to someone whom you admire and respect, who you think can give you some useful advice. A professional if you need to. So you can, there are a lot of ways in which you can go out. And then I would suggest that if you're having that kind of indecision, also a way to prompt your subconscious mind, a way to help you to come to a decision is to set a deadline for making that decision, and then just forget about it and see what rises to the top. So you'll say, I am going to make this decision by 3 weeks from today, or I'm going to make this decision by tomorrow morning, or I'm going to make this decision in 3 hours, or whatever it is. Go for a walk, do something else, let it kind of just percolate down, and trust that your subconscious will, in a dream, in a feeling in your body, in some kind of sense, will give you the answer, will tell you what to do. And if all else fails at that point, pick one. Pick one, because it's better, again, unless you have some fear you've still got to deal with or something else, it's better to make a decision than to not make a decision and just let life throw you whatever curves life might throw you. So yeah, I think that's my big thing on decision making. So try to make good decisions. Try not to make bad decisions. If you make a bad decision, and you will learn from it, move on. Carry on from there, no matter what the circumstances. Take what you can from it, and leave the rest behind. Leave the guilt behind. Leave the everything. Try to be some understanding of the self, the part of you that made that decision. Try to understand. Don't blame it on others. If you made a decision and it doesn't turn out well, it's not all other people's fault. You've got a part in this, and you need to figure out what your part is. You can't do anything about the others, but you can do a lot about your part and know what your part is, and understand yourself better, it will help you in the future. Um, and then don't be indecisive. Don't procrastinate forever. Don't wait forever to make decisions. Make them. And in general, I think that looking back, and I've heard this said of other people, the things I regret, and I don't spend a lot of time on regret, but the things I regret are not the things that I did that turned out to be not so smart, even if they were not great, not really nice things. Um, I I don't regret that as much as, unless they were mean or mean spirited. I regret anything that I've ever done that's mean spirited or mean towards somebody else. Um, but the things I regret are the things I didn't have the courage to do. The things I was writing a book about IT, about system development methodology, and well, we were in France. That's what I was working on, and I got an agent. It was a really good agent from Los Angeles, and then I got scared. I got too scared of success, and I got too scared of how it wasn't good enough and whatever, and I never followed through. I never actually finished writing the book and sent it to him, so that just died. I regret that, you know. I was afraid of success, and I was afraid of failure, both. And so the things I didn't do are the things that I regret. I regret not having children, but that was not a conscious choice on my part. So I can't regret that a whole bunch. I've just got to say that's the way my life turned out. I wish I had been able to have children. I suspect I was not. I wish I had, married younger. But I loved the man I married, and even though I didn't get married till 36, and he was already done with having kids, I loved him to bits, So I can't regret that. I'm sorry. I hope if there is, if we do come back, if we can live again another life, I hope I get to do that. That would be a nice thing. But it wasn't to be in this life, and so I've accepted that. So that's it for me on decision making. Number 5, I hope we were wrapping it all up. There are a lot of decisions you have to make when you're younger, but you have to make decisions all your whole life long. Like I'm over 80, I'm still making decisions, and trying to figure out the best way to do things and how to move forward. And I wish that for you too. It's one of the biggest skills and one of the biggest keys in having a happy and successful and fulfilling life. So go to it. See you on the next one.